Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Catalyze Yourself. I am Gayatri, and today we are stepping into a space all of us know way too well: chaos. Chaos isn't only what shows up in our inbox or around our kitchen table or when we are watching the news or scrolling social media. It is in the atmosphere of the world we are living in today. Economically, we are navigating uncertain markets and shifting industries. Demographically, populations are moving and aging and reshaping communities. Politically, tensions and divisions feel louder than ever. Add to that the pace of technology, the noise of information, and the constant pull on our attention. And it is no wonder that many of us feel way too stretched, unsettled, and ungrounded. And on top of that larger, broader landscape, our own daily life adds its own layers. It could be the loss of a steady income. It could be a project deadline that changes overnight. It could be a conversation that takes an unexpected turn while you're in the midst of many other complexities. Chaos can feel global and at the very same time personal. In our last episode, we talked about consistency and the recentering and reinforcement that slowly builds steadiness into who we are. And that steadiness matters here because when chaos presses in from every direction, the only thing that holds is what we have practiced into ourselves. So today, we are not talking about eliminating chaos. We can't, because chaos just lives outside of us in forces we don't control. What we can do is work with what's within us, within our reach. And if there's chaos living within us, we can learn to navigate that, to meet it without disruption, without losing our center, to bring our cognition, our emotion, and our consciousness back into integration, even when the world around us is not. And that's where today's conversation will take us. When we think of chaos, most of us don't picture one giant event. It is the way life stacks up on us. It is when our requests, our emails, our texts all seem to arrive at once. And before we've even finished one thought, we have many more waiting for our attention. We feel that tug to do everything now, or the obligation and the expectation that we need to be able to attend to everything now. And in that pull, our force scatters, our focus scatters, our energy falters. It is when our values rub against each other and we want to slow down and be thoughtful, but the moment is pushing so hard for us to move faster. We want to stay kind, but the tone in the room makes us want to defend ourselves. We can feel ourselves split between what matters and what is being demanded. It is when the people around us act in ways that do not align with what we value. And someone is avoiding the truth or snaps or dismisses in disrespect. And suddenly we can feel our emotions rising up, not just because of the words, but because the space no longer feels steady or safe. It is when the decision has to be made, even though the information is not there. We are watching the clock and the path is still feeling foggy. And then we push ourselves to choose, even when none of the options feel like the right one. We've all had days like these. We've lived them in our families, in our work, in our communities, in our daily life. And what's happening in those moments is our system trying to keep us safe. Our thoughts are scrambling to hold control. Our emotions are amplifying what is loudest, trying to signal to us that something has to change. And our body is bracing for that risk, that threat. When we recognize ourselves in this state, it is giving us a place to begin, not with judgment or blame, with compassion, because chaos is part of what we live in. Then steadiness, our presence of mind, has to become part of how we meet it. What we also have to recognize is that there's something else at play here. Chaos isn't the same for two of us or any one of us. Two people can be in the exact same moment, and one of us may feel pulled apart while the other stays centered. This is not a contest of strength. It is simply that we arrive with different nervous system states and different histories. What feels chaotic often depends on the capacities we have built within us, the practices we have trained, and the readiness we have to meet what's in front of us. And sometimes our nervous system has known mostly turbulence, toxicity. If we have spent a long time inside disruption, it could be at work, it could be at home, it could be within ourselves. Our system, our nervous system just simply learns to expect it and starts seeing it as status quo, your baseline. The constant alert of stress, of that threat, of that toxicity is what is familiar to you. And then when life gets steady, something inside can feel exposed or even unsafe. Not because moving into the steadiness is wrong or what's not best for you. Your body, mind, spirit thrives in safety and steadiness. But because this movement from toxicity into steadiness is new. And this is why moving from a non-steady, non-healthy environment into a healthy one can feel uncomfortable at first. The nervous system reads that no drama state as no information, no data state, and it interprets it as a threat. That discomfort is not a sign that we should go back to toxicity or chaos. It is a sign our system is recalibrating. And we need to trust ourselves and trust the process of moving forward to steadiness, to recentering. And with gentle practice, the same recentering and reinforcement we build with consistency, the healthy state begins to feel like home. And then your mind, body, and spirit starts thriving. One reason chaos can feel larger than the moment in front of us is because our lives tend to move through complex interdependencies. Some we can see, and many we cannot. Though math is not my favorite subject, there is a concept that comes from mathematics that's applicable here. In mathematics, there is a theory for this. It is called the chaos theory, and it shows how cause and effect systems, so if there's a cause, there's typically an effect, and they're interconnected in any kind of way, which could be systems that follow clear rules because there's a cause, and if there's something, that it's going to result in something else. These systems can still behave in ways that appear random because they're highly sensitive to small changes. What it shows is that tiny or micro differences in the starting conditions can lead to very different outcomes over time. And this is popularly known as the butterfly effect. I know most of us have heard this term, butterfly effect. Butterfly effect is when something predictable can turn into something completely unpredictable, into outcomes that we did not anticipate simply due to very minimal changes at the starting point. Every single day, we live our version of that theory. Think about how small things can tilt our days. One sharp word in the morning by somebody we care about can shift the tone of the whole day for us or maybe an entire family. One missed hour of sleep changes how patient or clear we are with everyone we meet. These are our versions of the butterfly effect, small beginnings that ripple further than we imagine and into places we did not plan for or predict. In the same way, a singular disrespectful tone in a meeting, one unresolved conversation, or one more demand added on our plate may not look dramatic on its own, but when these stack up, they tip us past our threshold. And that threshold is where our nervous system begins to register the moment as chaos. This is part of how our lives moves through interdependencies. Families, teams, communities, and our inner world each are moving pieces we are not always fully seeing. When unpredictability builds past what feels manageable, our system does what it does best. It reacts as if we are unsafe. And when that threshold is crossed, three kinds of friction can disorient us. One is loss of predictability. When familiar patterns break down, we overreach for control or we shut down. If we think back into our own experiences or others that we know, we have seen this in the face of what could be considered chaotic. It creates overwhelm, and then some could start trying to take control or exert control, and then we find others shutting down or pulling away. The second one is signal overload, where everything feels equally urgent, so our system treats it all as a threat. There is the moment when we lose discernment of what is truly important and urgent. And the third one is collapsed horizons or boundaries. You don't know where one starts or one ends. Everything gets jumbled together when it comes to time. So what needs to happen now, next, and later all blur together. So we are not able to separate our immediate step from the longer end goal. And when these three frictions stack up, chaos can feel bigger than the moment itself. And seeing them through the lens of these thresholds, that small inputs accumulate until they cross into overwhelm. This will help us shift from judgment, blame, shutting down, to understanding and navigating through it. Our role is not to remove unpredictability. It is to learn how to hold ourselves steady when threshold is reached. And that steadiness comes from peace of mind and presence of mind. Presence of mind simply means our thinking, our feeling, and our deeper awareness are staying in conversation with each other, even while conditions keep shifting around us. And instead of fighting unpredictability, we start building practices we can return to as the details change. And here is where my SIRE models can become a great value add. The SIRE model and the recentering steps of halt, rise, and shift gives us a repeatable pattern, a way to recenter when unpredictability tips into chaos, and to reinforce steadiness so the day does not run away from us. Seen in this way, chaos is not something we conquer. It is something we navigate, not by forcing the storm to stop, but by cultivating enough presence of mind to move within the storm. This is why the practices we've been building throughout our seasons, consistency, recentering, reinforcement, matter so much here. They give us something steady to return to even when everything around us is shifting. They create a thread of presence we can hold on to when the moment feels like it's just slipping away into chaos. And this is where SIRE comes alive. Our self-awareness, our self-inspiration, our self-regulation, and our self-expression, held together by our self-reflection, is the pattern we can lean on when life tips us into chaos. Along with halt, rise, and shift, they don't just give us the ability to navigate the storm, they help us stand steady within it. Let's walk through a day that can happen to any of us or to someone we know. Let's say that a meeting runs longer than planned and pushes everything else back. And then, as we are walking out, a message comes through about a shifted deadline or a key initiative. Add to that, sleep wasn't great last night, so patience is thinner than we would like. Nothing here is dramatic on its own. Together, it feels like suddenly our world has moved into absolute chaos. The moment we noticed what's happening, as it is happening, that is our self-awareness at work. And that is a critical moment. We are at a fork where we can continue on in overwhelm and continue on getting swirled up in the chaos, or we can choose to return to presence of mind so we can navigate each of the scenarios effectively. With the pattern that the SIRE model gives, the next step of that pattern is to bring us back to our center, is our self-inspiration. Once we become aware that our mind has crossed the threshold, that it took us away from being centered to being overwhelmed, our next move is to remind ourselves of why we want steadiness today, in this moment. It could be that we value clarity over speed. It could be that we respect everyone in every conversation. It could be that we are prioritizing care before control, connection before control. Remembering our self-inspiration gives us our nervous system and our mind the indication that the pattern we want to move to is presence of mind and not falling into overwhelm. This means our next step is to pause and recognize where in the halt state we are. Is it our hesitation? Is it our avoidance? Is it our scarcity or lack mindset? Or is it exhaustion that has become a source, bringing in the overwhelm for this chaos? It is the overwhelm of the mind and our nervous system that feels in times of chaos that brings in the halt state. Often, we've already slid into the halt state before we even notice it. And this is where the recentering matters, because that will move us through the pattern to rise by recognizing what is happening, resetting the intention, feeling physical senses to ground us back in the moment of now, and then evaluating what truly needs to move first. And then we shift. We stop the reflex, we highlight the next true step, and we take it and trust that slower does not mean weaker. And we may do this more than once in the same hour, and that's okay. This is self-regulation and the recentering we can practice until our nervous system learns it is the safer path for our health. And now, despite the same conditions that the day is bringing, we let our steadiness show up in how we speak, how we move. Instead of rushing or snapping, we will say, I've seen the change. Here's what I can move now, and here's what I can focus on at a later time. Or it could be that this conversation is getting heated. Let us pause and reconvene it at another time before the end of the workday today with what we know and what we still don't. Words matter, and the tone matters just as much. That is self-expression, transparent, clear, and respectful at the same time towards yourself and towards others. And in our moments of self-reflection, we have our recalibration moments and our reinforcing moments. What has helped us stay steady? Where did we drift? How can we become aware proactively so we can remain present despite unpredictability of the chaos? How can we become aware of our halt state or overwhelm sooner? This is not a scorecard. It is not an indicator of our strength or not. It is simply our growth path. It is how we reinforce to our body and mind that our pattern is safe, meaningful, and worth repeating. That's self-reflection, that quiet ecosystem that keeps our consistency adaptive, not rigid. And this is how we navigate stacked unpredictability or chaos, not by controlling every moving part and not by disappearing from the moment, but by threading presence of mind through it, noticing, reconnecting, recentering, speaking with care, learning as we go. SIRE is not a checklist, it's a way of moving through life. The more we walk this pattern, when the day moves or tips or goes off in tangents, the more our system begins to hold steady. And the more the people around us can feel that steadiness too. And when we have recentered and presence of mind comes back, then the question becomes, what do I do first? And that answer depends on the nature of the chaos itself. Sometimes the most helpful thing is to separate the now, the next, and the later. When everything feels equally urgent, sorting this way helps us see that not everything needs our immediate energy at once. One step belongs to now. The rest can wait for later and a later time. One can wait until the next, and one can be set aside for now. Other times, the pressure comes from not knowing enough. In those moments, it helps to pause and call out, accept, recognize what's known, what's unknown, and what do we need to do to increase our knowledge. Chaos grows in ambiguity, in gaps of knowledge, in gaps in information. And this is a simple step of intentionally gathering information and giving shape to what feels foggy. There are also moments when the pull to act is so strong, we forget that the order to do something or what we need to attend to plays a part in steadying us. Here, it helps to return to an order of care. First, you care about safety for ourselves and for others. Then, clarity. What is actually happening here? Then, connection. The 3 C's: care, clarity, connection. Connection, because how we show up with each other shifts the whole tone. And if we can place our priority of care in this way, it helps us prioritize in a more effective way when faced with chaos. And once we have prioritized this and then decide on the action, when the moment feels larger, we can hold. It helps to ask, what is the smallest next true step? Not the whole solution, not the perfect fix, just the one step that keeps us aligned. What I've shared are not exact formulas. They're quiet ways of applying our discernment and choosing. Once we've come back to presence of mind, they help us respond to the nature of chaos in front of us, whether it is urgency, ambiguity, reactivity, or sheer size of what we are facing. And it keeps us from being pulled under. Because when we can choose in this way, even in the smallest steps, chaos does not own our day. Presence of mind does. And there's a paradox here that we cannot ignore. For some of us, chaos isn't just disruption that arrives from the outside. It is the state of our nervous system that it has learned to live in. We've touched upon this across the length of our episode, but I do want to spend a moment here. When toxicity and turbulence is all we've ever known, it can start to feel like home. And when life begins to move towards steady, healthy, non-toxic state, the quiet does not feel safe. It can feel unfamiliar, uncomfortable, and our mind and our nervous system may start indicating stress. It may give us signs to move back into the familiarity of toxicity because we knew how to operate then, even if it was shutting down. We may notice ourselves getting restless when it's calm, or creating urgency when there isn't any, or bracing for the next disaster, even when nothing has arrived. And that does not mean healthy state is wrong. It means our system is recalibrating in how to operate when there are no chaos and toxicity around. And this is part of navigating chaos also. Not only learning how to choose in the storm, but learning how to let ourselves settle when the storm is no longer there. Presence of mind helps us here as well, reminding us that discomfort and calm is part of the journey in navigating out of chaos. It is the nervous system simply learning a new way of being. And with practice, that steadiness that once felt foreign to us can become the new ground we trust. And now, as we close today's episode, let us take a moment to bring it all together. Chaos is part of life. Sometimes it comes as a stack of small disruptions. Sometimes it tips us past a threshold all at once. And for some of us, chaos has been the steady state for so long that calm itself can feel like the place of overwhelm. Regardless of the nature of chaos or the context with which it arrives, what we've explored together is that presence of mind gives us choices. Whether the noise outside is too much or the quiet inside just feels unfamiliar. And in our journey to strengthen how we navigate chaos in our lives, there are some points we can reflect on. When the day shifts into chaos, what helps us come back to presence of mind instead of being pulled under? If chaos has been our steady state, how do we meet the discomfort of calm without rushing back into an old turbulent state through self-sabotage? And what small, true, intentional steps can we take in the noise or in the quiet that reinforces our presence of mind? Navigating chaos is not about silencing it. It is about learning how to move through it without losing ourselves and allowing our presence of mind to become the ground we return to. In our next conversation, episode 31, break your thought loop. We will return from the noise outside to the cycles inside, the loops of thought that can trap us, and explore how we interrupt them with awareness and choice. Thank you for joining me today. I am Gayatri, and I'm grateful for the time we've shared. Until next time, keep strengthening your awareness, keep reflecting on your growth, and keep navigating any chaos that comes your way with your presence of mind.